The benefit of a threadcast. Oh no.
All right. How's that?
Posting the threadcast, you can hear us.
That should be good now. Hey everyone. Thanks for the patience, but you should be able to hear us now. How is it now? Let's just see what people say.
Can everyone hear?
It's saying like conspiracy. Splowik says now it's fine. That's good. Okay. Well, you missed out on an amazing conversation about how everyone has potato audio in most things. Terrible audio, and I'm thankful to Khal to have a good setup right now. And I was just saying how cheap this setup that I have and easy to do it was. And I talked a little smack, but maybe that's better to be just our little secret now.
Instant karma.
Jeez.
Instant karma for that one.
As I was gonna say, do you remember what was the predecessor to Spaces called? There was something.
Well, there was the whole other app that was called Periscope. Periscope Live. Is that what you're thinking of?
What was it called again?
Periscope?
Yeah. No, it wasn't actually an X thing.
That's when they acquired that.
It was because I remember Periscope.
Or Clubhouse.
That was it. Clubhouse.
Clubhouse.
So,
yeah.
Clubhouse. I never used it, but it annoyed me. Then Spaces annoyed me for a while because they tried to make it such a amateur. Oh, everyone just has their phone on speakerphone and just spontaneous, and it just like the quality is just such trash. And we just got used to like everyone sounding like they're in the bottom of a submarine. And then finally, it's like I can actually use my good mic and headphones and speak on the desktop version of Spaces, and it's good now. But the weird mobile first nonsense annoyed me.
Yeah, it was. Our Clubhouse was super rough, and then you just had people jumping in and jumping out, and horrible connections. The app used to crash all the time. So I think like Elon went on a Clubhouse once, and I think the whole app crashed for like a day.
Yeah.
So
that's the funny thing is that was almost like the charm of it, you know? Like people liked that it was terrible. And I don't get that. Like, listen, I don't like I like when things are like raw and unfiltered sometimes, but I don't like lower quality. Like, ooh, the lo-fi sound.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
It's the counterculture.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's officially run this intro and get this thing going now that we've made sure everyone can actually hear us and stuff. Although, I think I need to crank up my volume just a little bit. Let me do that because people did complain on the last podcast that not the one today, but the last one of these I did like a month ago that my sound was too low. Anyway, intro 3, 2, 1, go. So, hey everyone, officially, happy Friday. Welcome to the Dash Podcast. I believe this is episode 216. Many years ago, I did this with some friends on another channel, and it was a weekly thing. And then in the beginning of 2020, I moved it to this channel, did it every other week, and then moved it to basically monthly. And so it's been many more than 217 weeks I've been doing this. It's been like, I don't know, like I'm trying to think about how many years, like 6 or 7 years I've been doing this particular podcast. And so it's kind of the excuse to start this whole channel. This is my personal channel, by the way. It's not officially affiliated with any Dash things. I could say whatever I want. No one can defund me or anything because it's my stuff. But anyway, joined by the one and only Khal. How's it going, man? Good,
man. Good to see you. It was a fun time in Croatia, so happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. It was, as I was just mentioning with Crimson Clad not too long ago. It was a great event. One of the better crypto events I've been to. My only complaint would be like the lack of Wi-Fi outlets and seating during the conference portions. That little thing, because I tend to be the guy who shows up to the whole conference and listens to all the talks while working on my laptop. and I had to sort of stay back in my room to get some stuff done, unfortunately. But other than that, it's a good time. Great group of people, great group of activities, great scenery, just all the
Yeah.
other stuff. Really fun.
Yeah, when we were in the dungeon day 2, that's when there was like no Wi-Fi, no connection. So there was a couple of us, like me and Yabapi Matt, were standing in the doorway, the entrance to the conference hall, and we were like half listening to the conference and on our phones. And people kept walking by and making fun of us that we were the business people that just couldn't get off of our phones. But the real reason was no service. So
Yeah.
we got it done though.
I'm just gonna. Someone's saying, "Oh, I wish there was an X stream." Yes, there is an X stream. We are live on X at the Desert Links, which is my handle. Unfortunately, I have to do the Desert Linux on Hive because I kind of lost my keys a while ago. That happens to everyone in crypto once in a while. And then so we're live on X, on YouTube, and on Odysee right now. And I will upload this to 3Speak later, so we're on all the stuff. But yeah, anyway, it was a good time there. Let me do a quick shill before we get officially started on everything. Just make sure I'm on the right pages and stuff, because as I mentioned, this podcast is proudly sponsored by CoinATM Radar, who were kind enough to. I was not looking for any sponsors, and they reached out to me and said, "Hey, we like what you do. We're probably going to lose money on this, but we might as well throw you a bag." And I'm like, "Thank you." So thank you for losing money on me. When buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable and safer than meeting some random person in some random place. And unlike an exchange, which could freeze your account, you truly own all the crypto you buy. With CoinATM Radar, you could find crypto ATMs and other services where you could buy or sell cryptos for cash. On their website, search by coin, address, if the ATM supports selling as well as buying, which is a big thing for me. And you can also search by geo area, like country, city, state. You can also check and compare actual current fees from different ATMs. Find out more, go to coinatmradar.com, which is CoinATMradar.com. And as I mentioned, it did help me out because a lot of my weird little living on crypto hacks don't work in every country. And when I went to Croatia, thankfully, they were CoinATM Radar pointing me in the direction of a good ATM in the Mall of Split. So I took the bus over there and just sold some Dash for cash and just used that, and which I was thankful for, because Croatia is a little bit more of a cash-based economy than a lot of like Western Europe and stuff. And so it definitely helped me out a lot. So thanks for that.
Yeah, Croatia was super Euro heavy. I was kind of surprised by that, but luckily I came prepared because I was not expecting them to pretty much not accept credit cards anywhere.
Yeah, it's yeah, you came prepared and you came papered, because the papers, you always have to have that.
Fiat is superior. You know what I'm saying?
Gross. But the thing is, it's kind of funny how I was in Munich for Oktoberfest in 2019, also as part of a crypto thing, and it was kind of funny how my wife went and tried to pay somewhere with like a card, and then they're like, "Do you have currency?" Like they really want that paper. They don't, trust the banks or whatever. Which, as much as it is a pain for my little workarounds and stuff, I admire the spirit, the cash spirit, the get things done spirit. So let me just kind of explain how we get here, and then you can go give your intro and everything you do. So I'll throw up on the screen a post that I made during Rare Evo in August. You're at Rare Evo at the Maya Protocol community, and there's a post of the booth with all the sponsored stuff. There's Thor Wallet, there's Dash, and right next to it, this weird little lion face, the LeoDEX folks. And so I hadn't really heard too much about LeoDEX or whatever. I just knew the Maya folks were like, "Oh yeah, they're sponsoring too. They're here." And then, oh, it's the one person who's not. Well, I mean, Thor Wallet wasn't there either, but like, oh yeah, he wasn't able to be here in person. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then, lo and behold, I go to Hive Fest, which is not a place I expected to see any Maya people. And I'm like, oh, you're that guy from the, okay, cool. And so we hooked up and chatted and stuff. And yeah, so why don't you just give the whole community, all of them at once, just a basic intro about who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'm Khal. I started Leo, which is now known as InLeo, about 5 years ago, back in 2019. Um, and it originally started as kind of a blogging platform for crypto and finance creators, primarily. Finance has always been a heavy focus of mine. I would say my like day job, main career would be investing. Obviously, just moving around my own capital, but that's the primary focus that I've always had. So starting Leo was kind of a natural progression of, say, take what I know of content creation and investing and the finance world and merge them together. And then, Leo was born. Um, so over the years, we've developed, I don't know, 20 plus apps for the blockchain space. Some are very well known, some aren't very well known. You mentioned LeoDEX. That's one of the more recent, apps that we've developed and released. So LeoDEX is a cross-chain trading platform. It's a cross-chain interface for the Maya protocol. So what we've done with that, I think, is pretty incredible as well, which is to tap into what Maya's created and then integrate the Hive blockchain into it through our
Yeah.
own backend aggregator. So that aggregator gives an entire other blockchain and dozens of other assets the ability to instantly be swappable with Maya assets. So if you're familiar with Maya and how it works, that's a pretty easy thing to understand because they've been talking about obviously rune aggregation and Thorchain aggregation and chain flip aggregation for a long time. So the aggregator space is nothing new, but we've managed to tap into something that was completely unrelated, which is Hive. So I've kind of walked both paths of Hive and Maya. I was an early Thorchain investor back when it was like 15 cents, I think,
Damn.
and they had no product. Yeah, they had no product, and they just said, "Hey, we want to do cross chain." And I was like, I love the
Sold.
idea of doing cross chain. Yeah, I was instantly sold. I was like, all right. And actually, people started talking about it on Leo. So the whole premise of Leo was kind of shown through with Thorchain, which was I created Leo so that people could talk about their investments and talk about crypto and finance and how they intersect. And then lo and behold, someone came on and started talking about Thorchain. I think it was Shanghai-preneur at first, who also goes by Prof K, and then Neil McSpadden and a guy named JK.
Mm-hmm.
They all came on and started talking about Thorchain. And I immediately was just like, this is the technology that the space has been waiting for. I hated centralized exchanges and the power that they held over the industry. So I started investing pretty heavily. Obviously, it's done pretty well now, and I think Thorchain is easily going to eat up the centralized exchange world. And then with everything that happened with FTX, it just became that much more obvious. So Maya was a natural progression. When Maya came out, I should have been faster at moving on it. I was very deep in the trenches on Thorchain at the time, so I did kind of reject the ideas of Maya, I would say, at first pass, which is probably a pretty natural thing for the average Thorchain person.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of like, okay, well, this is a fork of Thorchain, that's cool, whatever. But over time, I started realizing that Maya was doing a lot of different things and kind of focusing on the long tail. So I think that the fact that they focused on the long tail is what ultimately sold me on them. To not just try to do the same thing, but to actually say, okay, well, here's a hole in the market. Thorchain is like the Bitcoin of decentralized exchanges. Let's be the like Ethereum or like the kind of secondary to the major, and provide the things that the kind of more set in stone protocol won't be able to add. So that's when I started getting pretty interested in Maya, and then we were talking to them about launching a Leo pool. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, first of all, it is always cool to find people who were kind of got the Thorchain thing before I did. Like, you probably just heard about it before I did, but like I was a ChaosNet era user, and liquidity provider and all that kind of stuff. Because as soon as I think I heard Voorhees talking about it or something, I looked into it and I'm like, oh, this is everything I want, sure. And I know some friends of mine were kind of upset with Thorchain because of the quirks that were happening during the castnet, but like I just understood, I'm not here to like make money in this moment. I'm here to like be part of this cool thing. And kind of where the I think it was Naomi Brockwell who interviewed Chad Barriford for as a brief part of one of her videos, and then I was like, can you hook me up with Chad? I want to talk to him. So I interviewed Chad. I've interviewed him I think 4 times on this channel, not the Dash podcast specifically, but the just regular interview section. And one of these times, he just offhandedly mentioned there was going to be some Thorchain forks. He mentioned Maya Protocol, so I looked that up instantly because I'd been with Dash. I mean, I've been working full time with Dash since January of this year, but I've been involved with the community since like mid 2016. And when Thorchain came out, I kind of pushed really hard. Let's get on Thorchain because this is going to be huge. Thorchain was giving a lot of good overtures on that, and the Dash Investment Foundation bought like $100,000 of Rune in preparation for like kind of seeding a pool, and then Thorchain sort of backed off, and that's a different story. But as soon as I found out Maya existed, I like found them. I think I was the first person to ever interview Alux, like the first ever interview on this whole thing, and definitely before the chain launched. And a bunch of Dash people were like early liquidity auction people on Maya, and definitely pushed very hard for Dash to be the first coin added. And that's kind of where that's the Dash story as far as Maya is concerned. So just kind of to catch up on that history.
Yeah, it's Maya was I'm a little bit jealous that your Dash community got into the liquidity auctions, because a bunch of people from my community also got into those, and I know that they did very well on them. Like I said, I rejected it a little bit. It was an interesting time, but yeah, I wish I would have gone a little heavier in some of those early days. But yeah, Maya is super interesting, and obviously Dash is on Maya. So with LeoDEX, we're able to trade Dash and be involved with it as well. But yeah, I mean, the natural progression for us was kind of similar to you. I wanted to get Leo on Thorchain. Obviously they were in multi-chain chaos net, and I kept considering different ways that we could try to get onto Thorchain. And then eventually they just got so large. I think they kind of shifted their focus, quite a lot, which, I don't blame them for. I think they've shifted it in some good directions, some good, some bad with the different features that they've done. Like lending obviously wasn't the greatest shift, but, they've ultimately kind of found their niche, I think, with streaming swaps, and we've seen a lot of volume move there. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it from an investor point of view.
I would say on like lending and savers from the user perspective are 2 absolutely killer features that even were getting some Bitcoin maximalists sort of interested in Thorchain. And it's just that if you really understand the mechanics and how they work and the risk involved and things like that, and then you start to be like, well, I understand how maybe moving away from that on like the base Thorchain layer is kind of makes sense, because it's like it's not fully sustainable or the risk is too great or whatever. But it's just kind of interesting how like those features internally cause drama, externally cause like a lot of people to have interest in the project.
Yeah, which I think is pretty natural, especially in the crypto space, where you've got a lot of these, seemingly amazing products, but when you dive deep into the trenches, people have very, different opinions about them. I wish that Thorchain would have kept lending. I obviously saw the protocol risk, but I also thought that they did a good job of mitigating it. So obviously lending's been capped and kind of rolled out, but yeah, I mean, I think the feature is killer. I still use, platforms like MakerDAO, which, is called Sky now, I think. So I still use platforms like that for lending, but it would be nice to have, the native lending platform, especially now that Justin Sun owns Wrapped Bitcoin, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, and it's caused a lot of outflows in
100%. I mean, I think it's like $10 billion plus at this point. I think something insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, so that's the whole Maya thing. Um, and so you mentioned, so first off, you want to like give a quick breakdown of InLeo, what it is, why you decided to call it that, how it works, all that cool, kind of cool stuff.
Yeah. So InLeo is it's a social media app on the blockchain. So the best way I can describe it is, take what you know of X and similar platforms, and then imagine that instead of when you post something, it goes to a big data farm. It actually goes to a blockchain and is permanently stored there, and immediately retrievable by anybody who's running a node. So when you use social media, I think kind of the two key problems with social media in general is one, who owns the data, and two, who is benefiting from that data.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at the history of platforms like Facebook, X, and others, and all that information that you're putting on the platform is ultimately creating this multi-billion-dollar corporation. Like Facebook is one of the most valuable corporations in the world, and they built their entire platform on the back of user-generated content, um, which a lot of us refer to as UGC. So all of that UGC has been generated over time, and people basically give their lives to create that UGC. But then all the money, all the value basically flows to the top 1%. So it flows to the best creators and the top creators, and then it flows to the corporation. So you have that kind of monetization aspect. And then the other piece of it is all that data that you're putting out there isn't actually yours. So, there's a common saying that if a product is free, you are the customer, right?
Yeah.
Or you are the product essentially. And what they're doing is selling, they're selling your data to governments. They're selling your data to other corporations. They're obviously running their ad campaigns against you, and all the things that you've done on their platform. So, as a user, not only have you built the value of the platform, but you are actually, seeding it with all the information that really creates any sort of substance to that corporation. So if every user on Facebook decided one day to not use it, it would have no value. So clearly you're the customer, and you are the product as well. So what I wanted to see with InLeo was, can we build a very similar model in terms of monetization, but build it around a blockchain and say, the core idea is, can we give the average user, every single person that signs in, the ability to own their data and own the value of the data, kind of outflows. So, whether it's ad monetization or premium, or creator subscriptions, the entire idea is that instead of enriching a corporation with all the data you're putting onto a social media platform, enrich a token that's owned by the entire community itself. And that's kind of how we work around the, build a social media corporation with no corporation, essentially.
Nice. Yeah. And I have to say, so I might as well throw it up on the screen here so people can see kind of what it looks like. So I started using, so I was a Steam user way back in the day. There's some early Steam users who were also in the Dash community, such as I don't know if you remember Stella Bell from back in the day. She kind of went back and forth between, and there's some other creators like that, like Jerry Banfield is another one. Like some of these old school things. And so after the split, of course, I made sure to keep using Hive after the Steam split. But for many years since Steam, I felt like a lot of the interfaces and things like that were just not super, just kind of still stuck in the past. Where, like, for example, Hive.blog, which is like the Steam equivalent, it's just like that's where a lot of people used it. And then Peak D, as I just checked it out today, I haven't really looked into it too much until recently. It has gotten some upgrades to it today, which is nice. But like in the early days of like the Hive part of the block of the split, it was just like, well, this is cool. I like all this stuff, but I'm not sure if it's going anywhere. And of all the interfaces, InLeo is the one that to me looks like it's for today. Kind of, it doesn't look like it's like you don't look like you're going retro when you're using Hive now. It's like you look like you're using something relatively modern, and it does have like modern features and doesn't feel nearly as clunky as like the other ones. So like that's kind of my context on that.
Yeah, it's definitely intended for an external audience. It's intended for the average person. I often use the example of the internet when I explain it, which is that, your average user of the internet, literally 99.9% of the world has no idea how the internet works. They don't know anything about TCP or how the internet was built or the origins of it, and they don't care to know. So that is the literal state of the average user, and I think a lot of people try to reject that and say, okay, well, even in the broader crypto space, not even just for social media apps on the blockchain, but just for the broader crypto space. I mean, everyone wants everybody to understand. They want everyone to read Satoshi's white paper for Bitcoin and understand all the inner workings. And frankly, I've rejected that idea for a long time. I do think that people should read it, but I don't think that they should be forced to read it. And I think that if you're building an application of any kind that uses blockchain, you need to have the average person in mind and remember that at the end of the day, they care about what they can do with something, not how it works. People buy an iPhone because they care about, being able to call their friends or, watch YouTube videos or text their friends. And they could give two shits about how, that actually works on the back end. So, building apps on the blockchain is not different in any way. My goal with it is that when you use InLeo, you understand that there is a blockchain out there, very similar, like you ask a person, how are you sending messages on your phone? And they'll be like, oh, well, cell service and the internet. So they understand that that's out there, but they don't know how it works and they don't care to know. So I'm taking a very similar approach with InLeo, which is, you own your data. When you post something on InLeo, it's going onto a blockchain. If you wanted to leave, you could download all the data, straight from the chain, or you can run a node, do whatever you want, and take off with it. And then, in addition to that, you're also getting, 99% or whatever of the value of the data that you're putting onto the blockchain. So as long as you understand those from a, 40,000 foot perspective, that's really what I care about. And I hope that when you use the platform, it's kind of obvious in that direction.
Yeah. And it is kind of, as far as like, there's a lot, like Signal has a whole lot of users, for example. And I first, like, I've been a Signal user since the very early days, just because I care about all that weird stuff. But it was in 2018, I think, early 2018, I was talking with a CNN journalist, and I noticed that was back when the Signal for Android let you do SMS from it as well. They kind of deprecated that feature recently, but like the one check or whatever, if it was an SMS message, and the two if it was Signal. I noticed the CNN reporter was using Signal in like 2018. I'm like, oh, this is a non-crazy libertarian anarchist person. It's like CNN's pretty normie, but it is like journalists are starting to understand this is a safety thing. And now I have like a lot of friends and family who are very normie, who are kind of on that. And they don't understand the depths of end-to-end encryption. They just know, oh, this is like safer and better and more private. And then Apple advertises privacy now too. And they don't get into the depths of the stuff because people don't care, especially not Apple products. They just want it to work. But you get that it's safer because it's private. And so it's using a blockchain-based social media thing. The thing you get is you own your own data and money. And that's all you need to get. As long as you get that one thing, every post is on the blockchain. These are technically under comments, but the way we display them is this, and then the blog post that, and the Hive curation rewards go from here. And like, okay, that's for people who want to dig into it. But for the average person, this is the freedom network. Like, if you get rugged, you still keep all the stuff and can. We were kind of talking earlier offline about how like Peak D is doing some similar style short form things as InLeo, and how I would like there to be some sort of a standard amongst Hive interfaces where there should be somewhere else you could go if you get rugged to where all your stuff is still displays. Whereas like in the blogging part of Hive, that's very well kind of established where Hive.blog kicks you out, you go to Peak D, they kick you out, you go to InLeo and you still have that part. Like there's a bunch of different ways to do it. But anyway, yeah, I just think that's a cool aspect of it's just having this stuff, you know, not necessarily that it's on chain specifically, but that it's on a decentralized network associated with you where your private keys control it.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, on the point of like in a doomsday scenario, I always remind people that you know if InLeo disappears, all your data is on the blockchain, so you can just go to a block explorer and grab it. If all Hive interfaces disappear, including the block explorers, you can still at any time spin up a node and grab it directly. So you know, no matter what happens, essentially, as long as there's one node on the network, you know, your data is out there and can be downloaded or accessed in any way. So yeah, I mean, InLeo created microblogging, and I was talking about it. I actually was talking about it for like the past, I think, 4 years. And then about 2 years ago is when we originally launched it. You know, Peak D launched it last week, or their version of it at least. And we created a standard that I called containers. I called it thread containers. But you know, I've seen two different platforms on Hive now basically create their own version of containers rather than use the standard we created. So, you know, I think the key difference that you outlined is that, you know, blogging on Hive is kind of native to the blockchain, whereas the container approach is kind of almost a second layer. It's not exactly a second layer, but it's essentially a second layer on the blockchain. So there is no standard, there is no, you know, API for it. It's something that we just invented. And unless these other UIs, you know, decided to use what we created, you know, they basically create their own copycat of it. And then now you've got, you know, all these different standards. I guess the good news is that the you know, the container approach that you know, myself and my team invented actually uses comments on the Hive blockchain. So, you know, in reality, you can go to any interface on the blockchain, and you can actually view all those, you know, comments, because they, at the end of the day, they're all comments on any interface. So I guess there is that at the you know, bare minimum, in addition to obviously going to the block explorers and running your own node if you're so inclined. But yeah, I agree that there should be a standard, and I tried to create one, but you know, people will do what people do.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Like the free market will solve the whole thing. I do remember somewhere around 2020 when I got more full into the whole content creation thing, started this channel, everything like that. Actually, I started a library or / Odysee later channel before my YouTube channel. I kind of started like that first and then went that way. And I was trying to see if someone wanted to build a microblogging thing on the library network. And it's like, man, I don't know if it really works out. And then I was playing around with some Hive interfaces, and I was like, someone should do that for Hive and just like somehow have a different category of thing where it just filters all the where the blog feed filters all the short form things out. And some people were like talking about it, but like there wasn't that much interest. There wasn't momentum on it. And it's like a massive thing because that's how people communicate. People don't just do essays and comment on them. That's not the entirety of human expression. Most of it is just like conversations, like back and forth messages. And having that's kind of
Right.
cool. Quick intermission to just show something. I took a screenshot. Someone in the Dash Telegram group took a screenshot. Here, I'm just putting it up on the screen of they're watching the show on their TV in their house right now. So it's like they have a picture of like a thumbs up and a TV in the background with us on it. So I just thought that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Anyway, that's all cool. And so, how long has InLeo been around? For me, it's very new, but I think you said you've been doing it for quite a few years.
Yeah, so we officially, I was kind of formulating it, I would say about 6 years ago. And then the official launch date, when our first interface went live, was July 3rd, of 2019. So just over 5 years now, is when the token launched, and then the first interface, for it launched. Gone through I think four different interfaces from scratch. So when you mentioned that, each each interface kind of has, well, at least the majority of interfaces kind of have a more retro feel to it versus InLeo, which is a bit more modern. I would say a big piece of that is that, while we've continued to build other interfaces, we've built up this back end architecture, inside of a vertical stack that can kind of be swapped in and out of new interfaces. So, in May of 23, we launched the current iteration of what you see on InLeo.io, using obviously that vertical stack we created, but then building the front end completely from scratch. So I am not afraid, and never have been, of literally trashing the old UI that we have, throwing it away and starting over. Obviously keeping all the back end architecture, in place, but then just kind of, restarting from zero. I think that kind of approach is really needed, especially in the crypto space, where we lack UX and we lack, UX designers and people that truly understand what the average user wants to see. You really need to put things out there, get feedback, and be willing to completely destroy what you've built, in order to create something new. So, yeah, I think that approach has just really served us well, over the last 5 years, as we've developed not only InLeo but all the other apps like LeoDEX and other things.
Yeah, I do like the present kind of situation, and there were some bugs when I first started using it like a few weeks ago that just aren't there anymore, which is always good to see, actual progress on the platform. And then recently just launched subscriptions, which is, I think, very interesting because maybe we take a quick little detour to talk about Hive, because a lot of people don't know too much. Like, there's a lot of Dash people that remember Steam from the early days, and then some who are still on Hive today. But basically, Hive slash Steam before it, is a social blockchain, that is focused initially on like microblogging, on blogging, and basically, based on like upvotes and stuff from different accounts, people get paid from the block reward. Do you have you memorized a quick little pitch for like how the actual money distribution happens in Hive? Like, how do people actually get paid?
Yeah, I feel like I haven't talked about that in so long, but, let's see if I can give you a quick one. So there is a rewards pool. Everybody in crypto is pretty familiar with, block rewards. So like you said, there's a preset amount of block rewards, and those block rewards get paid into a giant pool. When you, like someone, which on the blockchain we call an upvote. So when you upvote someone's content, you're actually dictating to the rewards pool what amount of, voting shares you have, and based on how many voting shares you have, it tells the rewards pool, all right, send this much of the rewards pool to this user, for this piece of content. So it's essentially a block reward system, but instead of having a kind of randomized miner approach, which is what Bitcoin has, it actually has a kind of social proof, where, people actually dictate to the rewards pool who those rewards should flow to. So that was kind of dubbed, proof of brain in the origin days. Obviously, Bitcoin has proof of mining, which is just having essentially power on the network. Ethereum now has proof of stake, which is just kind of stake based. The more you own, the more, control you have, and the more you earn. And then Hive kind of has this interesting proof of brain model, which essentially is just delegated proof of stake, but wrapped up in different terminology. So those block rewards get sent out, every 7 days based on whoever's upvoting who, and who has the most stake, essentially. So it kind of takes the best of the proof of stake world, in my opinion, and the best of the kind of proof of action or proof of brain ideals, and then merges them together.
Yeah. It's so it's kind of it's one of those things where in terms of like the I really like like economics and tokenomics and to see how everything kind of works out. And at the end of the day, someone always pays for something. And when you're starting using some sort of a system like, let's just say like a Bitcoin based one or something like that, or, for example, Dash, every transaction has a very small transaction fee. And this is also present in the evolution data chain that just launched at the beginning of last month, where when you write data to the chain, you pay a very small fee in credits to just store that data. And that makes sense when you're paying for things. It works out. It's a very honest way of doing things, right? As far as like literally someone's giving up some value for something they value in return. Now, the problem is when you're trying to onboard mass user apps and things, especially like a social thing, that does introduce a significant amount of friction where you're like, oh, I'm going to have my account on the blockchain. I can't post unless I have some coins. So I have to buy some or someone has to give me some. And then even though if they're very cheap, you could then post and then you send some money to people. And then like the monetization part of it, it all comes together in a much more clunky kind of way. And the way one would do that if someone built, like, let's say a Dash based social media platform is you'd have some app that would then on people's behalf pay for posts, and then they'd allow people to they just like take a cut of tips or something else, and then they might have some grant from the DAO to pay people to upvote posts or whatever kind of thing. But it's like with Hive, all that stuff does exist, but it's already kind of built into the protocol, which some people who are like purists might not like the tokenomics or the way it works, but it's undeniable that it does bootstrap a social posting kind of experience where now it's like anyone can use it. Instead of fees, you have like resources delegated to allow people to certain posting abilities. And then you upvote people's posts and things like that. And then they just get money, free money. It's not free money. It comes from somewhere like everywhere. But for the end user's experience, they just plug in and go. And it's like all those friction points of onboarding new users are kind of baked into the protocol. And so that's something that kind of makes it a lot easier where anyone could sign up to InLeo and start posting for free. And if it's successful, they just get paid money without the people having to actually give their own money to pay them. So from just that basic standpoint, it's kind of like pre-solves a lot of UX issues that an app developer would then have to kind of, bootstrap together on their own.
Yeah, and one interesting thing about two things. One about the being able to sign up and just go without having to buy in or buy any essentially the gas token. The gas token on Hive is called resource credits, and resource credits are rechargeable. I like to call them a rechargeable gas token. Because you basically spend them in order to do things like make a thread or make a blog post or send something, or comment on someone's post. So you actually need resource credits in order to do those things. If you signed up on another platform that wasn't InLeo, for example, you actually need some resource credits in order to start doing things. So the blockchain gives you a very small amount to start as just a baseline, but then individual apps can have systems where they can delegate out more resource credits. So I think we've actually done such a good job of what we've created that you don't even know that it exists. So we have a dynamic resource credit delegation pool. So when people sign up to InLeo, we actually delegate them resource credits. And as they become more active, we increase our delegation to them. So that's the dynamic part of the delegation pool. And then if they become less active, we actually pull back and pull them back into our own pool until they're more active again. And then we just kind of keep ebbing and flowing with them based on their activity. So, one problem with onboarding people to Hive in the past was that people would run out of resource credits. So sometimes when people sign up elsewhere, you actually still see this happen where people are running out of resource credits and they don't really know why. They go to make like a third comment of the day and they can't make a third comment. And what we've done is just make this dynamic pool where we're reading every sign up that we've had, and reading their resource credits. Mm-hmm. And if we see that they're running low, we actually just increase the delegation to them. And where we get those resource credits is our staked Hive. So, Leo as a project has a couple million Hive power staked. And that gives us a pretty significant pool where we can actually delegate those resource credits to people that sign up. And then the second piece is the Leo rewards pool. So we kind of explained how the Hive rewards pool works. Mm-hmm. And the Leo rewards pool is actually kind of it's kind of inspired by that model, but it does it as a second layer asset on the Hive blockchain. So, I've been watching this threadcast and a couple of people were talking about the Hive rewards pool, and you can see that there's a very mixed feeling about the rewards pool. And you kind of mentioned it as well as, people wonder, where does the money actually come from? When you have a system like this,
where does the yield come
which
from?
Is
that all
exactly. Again, another question of, if you don't know, or if a product seems free, then you are the product.
Yes. And I have to say, as far as like, where does the yield come from? Where does the money come from? A lot of people like it as a rhetorical question, where by asking the question, you like FUD or shut something down, but it's a real question. Sometimes there's a real answer to it, where it's like, this is where it comes from. It's like, oh, okay.
Right. And if they say that it comes from, something that seems too good to be true, it most likely is. So, Hive has an interesting model with the rewards pool, and it's obviously, evolved over time. The Leo rewards pool, I think it kind of ties back to what I was saying originally about the vision behind what InLeo is meant to be, which is to be very much akin to a Web 2, Facebook or an X type of platform. But instead of that value flowing to a central corporation, it goes back into the token. So the yield on Leo, or the rewards pool, is actually inflationary until like 2056, I think is when it ends. So it's inflationary till 2056. The inflation is constantly dropping from now until then. And then something called system income takes over. So between now and then, all the revenue generated by the platform, so you mentioned creator subscriptions, it's one of the newest forms of revenue. Then we've also got, ad revenue and premium revenue. All of this revenue actually buys the token off the market. And until 2056, it will actually deploy it into a liquidity pool on Maya. So it's permanently buying Leo and Cacao and then perma pooling it and obviously, sending it to a perma address or a burn address, if you will. So that's happening until the inflation stops. And then after that, all the revenue is actually converted into I've called it a SERP, or a system income rewards pool, where the rewards pool is actually just based on the revenue generated by the platform. Mm-hmm. So the platform generates revenue, buys Leo, and then distributes it to the rewards pool, which is then distributed by the users. So I think I think you do need to have an answer to that question, kind of like what you mentioned. You can't just not have an answer to it. So I think what's really cool about Leo is that we're not just saying that we have an answer to that question. There's a literal answer that's live in the form of, all those different aspects of revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I think that the onboarding tool that is the way resources and the rewards pool and Hive works, I think a lot of people maybe just take it for granted and think that that's all that you should have, sort of. Like, let's just let the protocol pay. And then someone ends up paying in the end because it comes from somewhere. And and a lot of people like this whole free money. There's a lot of free money ideas in a lot of crypto. And I've noticed some of that in some aspects of the Hive community. And one thing I like about InLeo is there's a very clear, someone is making money by providing this service, and someone is going to make sure that the service freaking works, right? And I'm an unabashed free marketeer, capitalist, whatever. And obviously not something should be done through a nonprofit thing or something like that. But for the most part, the business model is what really works. And so it's not just like, oh, well, as long as the Hive token is okay and is giving like creator rewards, this is all going to work out. And it's like, well, no, but also if people want a better experience, they buy premium on InLeo. They can also contribute to their favorite people through creator subscriptions, and the actual InLeo gets some money from that. Takes a cut again, a much smaller cut than other comparable platforms, but still something. And then there's just a bunch of other. There's just like some actual value proposition of having it. And then of course, well, I guess we'll get into LeoDEX in a little bit, but anytime people go in and out of other tokens and stuff through that, then LeoDEX generates some revenue from that as well.
Yeah, I've always approached InLeo and the Leo ecosystem with a very business heavy mindset, which I think is kind of actually counterculture to what is generally accepted in crypto, which is we should give everything away for free. We should work for free. We should give away all this money, and people will join the platform, and there tends to be a scenario where they answer half the question but not the full question. And the second part of that is as important as answering any of it, which is why do any of this in the first place? I'm remembering the recent Sam Altman appearance where they asked him, how much do you make from OpenAI, and he said nothing because he does it because he loves it. And then not too long after that he got like a $6 billion payout.
Wow.
So if
that's like getting off on a technicality. It's like, look, I haven't made a single dollar from this platform. I made $6 billion. Like, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, right. It is hilarious. So it's again, like you said, I mean, it's an incentive based world that we live in. I'm also very free market capitalist, and I believe in efficient markets. It's if someone's saying that they make nothing and they're doing it just because they love to do it, there's definitely an ulterior motive of some kind, whether they're taking your data and selling it off, or or profiting in some other way that you can't see. Robinhood being another great example of Vlad selling your data on the back end, but telling you that literally telling you in the title of the app that it was Robinhood, it's made for the people, but then selling your data and your trades to Citadel without you knowing it.
It's made for the people to be farmed. Really quick before we dive into the LeoDEX stuff, there's like 26 people watching on YouTube right now, and only 6 thumbs up. So everyone who's watching on YouTube, please hit a thumbs up. Everyone who's watching on X, please hit a like. And if anyone's watching on Odysee, hit a little fire emoji thingy too, or whatever it is. Just pump it up so more people see this thing. So the next piece of this is LeoDEX. So LeoDEX is a Maya protocol plus other things, front end. And I think a lot of people watching this probably understand pretty well how Maya works because they've been pretty close to the Dash community. But basically, Thorchain fork, you got liquidity pools like a cross-chain Uniswap. And then on Maya, you could swap between Ether, Arbitrum, Bitcoin, Dash, Kujira for a little while, Radix, and I think that's it for now. But Zcash is coming very soon, and so is Cardano. Cardano, I don't know if it's very soon, but it is coming. And I don't know what else. But basically a bunch of different chains you could just dump Dash into a pool, and then whoop, another coin comes out, or the other way around. And so it's a great decentralized way of swapping around. Dash in particular, the Dash pool hit like a $500,000 trading volume on Maya not too long ago for one day, which is pretty nice. It's been up and down, but recently it's been doing pretty well. So LeoDEX is one of, and by the way, with all these front ends for Maya, people who run the front ends it's kind of built in to the Thorchain protocol and therefore Maya as well, that the interfaces could take a small cut of the trading fees. And so that kind of adds to the sustainability of LeoDEX from my understanding. But yeah, please go in anything I missed and all the extra stuff beyond just the Maya piece. Feel free to talk about LeoDEX.
Yeah, LeoDEX is one of the most recent apps that we've worked on. Obviously InLeo is the flagship app, and that's where where our focus is. But the entire model behind the Leo ecosystem, the vision behind it is build a platform, grow the user base by providing the users apps and tools that are useful to them, and giving them a reason to stay, via community. And then, kind of the latter piece of all of that is, monetize the user base and then flow all that revenue back into the token. So LeoDEX was kind of a natural progression for us. I mentioned that I was pretty heavy into Thorchain in the early days. And then obviously, got excited about Maya and the things being built there as the long tail of the DEX space. So what LeoDEX is our interface for the Maya protocol. Some kind of like key highlighted features of it are, if you swap under $150, it's got free affiliate fees, which you mentioned is a kind of built-in revenue mechanism. And then anything over that, we take a 0.45% affiliate fee on which then buys Leo and pools it. So, the approach that I took with LeoDEX is very similar to what I did with InLeo, which is, try to make something that's extremely user friendly, has a good user experience, kind of almost feels familiar when you go to it. So, InLeo achieves that by looking like similar to X. And LeoDEX, I think, achieves that by looking like a very clean version of Uniswap. That's kind of where we were headed with it. And then even the bottom of the page, if you ever go to LeoDEX, at the bottom of the page, you'll notice that there's a little bar, and if you click on it, it's got all sorts of different details that you can actually swipe through. And I stole that from Apple. So if you have a newer iPhone, there's something called a dynamic island at the top. So that bottom feature is actually just completely ripped from Apple, and I also call it a dynamic island. So really the vision of LeoDEX is build something super simple that's easy to understand, intuitive to use, and kind of built for the community, and then kind of unleash it on the world. Like you said, we were a sponsor at the Maya booth in Vegas. I actually had my tickets and I was supposed to go, and then 2 days before I had to cancel because of something that came up. But yeah, it's been really fun to work with the Maya team and work on this. And I think it kind of opens us up to, which I don't know if you want to get into, but kind of opens us up to a future of potential collaborations and the ability to really step outside of just, being in the Hive ecosystem, and being very cross-chain, and being able to, connect with different applications and ecosystems much more easily, because we've built these aggregation rails that can be essentially tapped into anything. So
Yeah.
that was my ultimate vision, was build the rails that can then essentially lay down the railroad tracks that can lead us to connecting with any project out there in the broader crypto ecosystem.
Yeah. Would you mind kind of breaking down how the aggregation stuff works? Because as I mentioned when I was talking about Maya supports quite a few little tokens, and Thorchain supports a different set of tokens. So like Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin and some other ones like that are on Thorchain. And so sometime if I wanted to swap Litecoin for Dash, I have to do Litecoin to Rune on Thorchain and then Rune to Dash on Maya. And so right now that's a 2-click process as far as I understand. I've been super busy and sick and other things like that, but as far as I understand, that's still the way it's working out right now. And now, and then you do have some platforms like, for example, Rango Exchange that have EVM aggregation as well, where you have like let's just say in one EVM chain for another, like Uniswap style stuff. You swap that for that, and then that for the actual L1 asset on Maya or Thorchain, for example. And so Hive is one of those kind of older legacy tokens, isn't really on almost any DEX stuff that I was able to know, at least not in that kind of way. And so I was sort of surprised. I was like, whoa, you figure out a way to swap, like to plug Hive into the whole Maya and Thorchain kind of ecosystem? How did you do that? So, how did you do that? How did you manage to get, say, HBD and Hive to where you could swap that for, say, Dash?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've always been a believer in the multi-chain future and very chain agnostic. So when I saw the opportunity to connect Hive to Maya, I was obviously very excited about what we can do with that. So the way we achieved it is first of all we had to get Leo listed on Maya. So worked very closely with the Maya team. We actually launched a new version of Leo on the Arbitrum blockchain. So
Mm-hmm.
Leo lives natively on the Hive blockchain as an L2 asset, but then we've launched other versions of Leo on other blockchains, and we built our own Leo bridging technology, which essentially just allows people to convert native Leo into these other forms of wrapped Leo, essentially. So we're on Ethereum, Arbitrum, BSC, and Polygon. So the Arbitrum edition, and then getting listed on Maya, is what allowed us to then build the rails for the aggregator. So when the Leo Cacao pool launched, we also had the Leo swap.hive pool on the Hive blockchain. And what we did was we built a backend where it's essentially just a bridge, but it automates. Again, this gets to the whole thesis of how we build everything, which is, how do we make this as easy as possible for the average user? So on the back end, super complex, and then abstract that complexity away from users and allow them to just use something that's very clean and takes 2 clicks. So the aggregator actually will take you essentially, let's just say you go from Hive into Dash as an example. So you go to LeoDEX, you input Hive in the top, you hit input Dash in the bottom, very much like a Uniswap-like interface.
Yeah.
And then you hit swap. And what happens is for you, the user on the front end, you actually literally just click swap, and then it'll just go through a multi-step process. And you might have to click you might have to click confirm a few times, similar to like if you were doing something on MakerDAO or any other DeFi app where you might have to confirm multiple times. So you might have to confirm multiple times, but the window remains the same, and you literally just click the confirm button as it goes through its paces. But essentially what it's going to do is it's going to, on the back end, take your Hive, it's going to swap it into Leo, and then it's going to bridge it from Leo on Hive to Leo on Arbitrum, and then it's going to swap it from Leo on Arbitrum into Dash on the Maya protocol, and then it's going to output that Dash into your wallet. And you obviously have to have your Dash wallet connected and your Hive wallet connected in order to make that possible. So the aggregator basically is just moving your funds from or between these 2 different pools on 2 different blockchains.
Yeah. And so as far as like how many steps are involved as far as like different things you click through on the process?
So it depends on which route you're going to go through, but let's continue with this Hive to Dash route. You're going to have 1 click to go from Hive to swap.hive. You're going to have a 2nd click to go from swap.hive to Leo. Your 3rd click is going to be Leo to Arbitrum Leo. And then that's actually it. So for that route, there would only be 3 clicks on the Hive side. And then you would eventually have the Dash in your wallet.
Yeah. And so, and I'm sure all those clicks is because you're actually authorizing transactions from your wallet, and you're not trusting any third party with this, and that's kind of why you have to do it all these steps, right?
Exactly. So at each step, you're actually broadcasting a specific transaction. So from Hive to swap.hive, you're broadcasting that you want to bridge your Hive to the L2. And then from swap.hive to Leo, you're authorizing a swap from swap.hive to Leo. And then the Leo to Leo Arbitrum bridge is a transaction that you're authorizing to just bridge your Leo across the 2 blockchains. And then once it's bridged, it's actually just auto swapped via my protocol, and then you get the Dash.
Yeah. And so, is there maybe not? It looks like people they're coming for you. Your house is on fire. Anyway.
Oh, can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear that a little bit, just a little bit. But
That's funny.
Maybe it's because what you're dropping is just so fire that they had to call the fire
They
department.
had to come put it out.
Yeah. And so, is there a way, maybe not on the LeoDEX front end interface itself, but is there a way to basically automate any of this kind of stuff? Where if you wanted to, for example, do a, I'm not saying maybe not today, but it's easy enough to build in to where if you wanted to have a consistent thing where you either just literally click once instead of like four times and the whole, or three times and the whole thing happens, or just not click at all and just there's like an automated way that the whole swap process happens.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. So, we talked earlier, and after chatting, obviously some of the things that we want to do will require that we have this kind of essentially a custodial version of what I just described, because what I just described is a non-custodial version where you authorize every single step. But to build, what we were thinking about would require a custodial version where you have one authorization and then everything else is still or still handled on the back end, but without you having all the clicks. And then also, if something were to fail and it's self custodial, then you have to essentially fix it throughout the process. So there is kind of a UX gap between where it stands now and where it could be if you were to have a custodial version. So yeah, I had a dev meeting right after we talked, and I think our next step for LeoDEX is actually to add this custodial layer in a sense, or at least a way that we can have an oracle where you authorize the oracle and then everything else is handled for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, from a UX perspective, it would be taking it down from where it is right now, which is 3 clicks, to 1 click, where you would just do the input output and hit swap, and then it's done. And then the Oracle handles it from there. And if there are any issues, it just auto retries via smart contract.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good, especially because, as you mentioned with InLeo, the way I signed up is I got a Hive keychain and I just use that to sign up. And, it's just my own keys, my own funds, everything. And as you mentioned, there is like a sign up with like Google or Twitter or whatever option, which is like the training wheels option, the centralized option that just lets people sign in with whatever. They don't have to actually manage their own keys or funds. But at the same time, there's the trade off that it's more, I guess, traditional Web 2 style in that way. And then people can't decide to claim their own keys at a later date. And so for some people, like for example, X is entirely custodial. They own everything, all your data, all your money, everything until it ends up in your bank account or whatever thing you do. But it's smooth. And so I guess for some users, there's that kind of option. So where all this kind of comes at kind of the big picture of Hive, InLeo, Maya, LeoDEX, kind of how all this works. One thing so blockchains do some things very well and some things not as well, and it very much varies between the blockchain. And then also the communities and the ecosystems and tooling and everything built out. There's just so many hours in the day, so many priorities. And so what the Dash community has been focusing like hardcore on since day one is a very fast, efficient, secure, decentralized money and payments method, basically digital cash. And a lot of the developmental priorities have been around making sure we have very smooth operating mobile wallets that have privacy in them and that just work, and then a ton of integrations and other things like that that facilitate the use of Dash's money, whether it's tons of centralized exchanges from the Coinbase to the Kraken to the whatever else, Binance obviously, all over the world, to on ramps such as like to Uphold as well, to on ramps such as Topper that's integrated into the wallet where you can just put a credit card in and just buy for like what, a 3% fee without doing KYC up until like $2,500 total buy or whatever. Just like easy get in there to Bitrefill, which has massive amounts of gift cards and other things all over the world, and Dash is one of the supported coins. You could just instantly buy it. Like you want to buy something on Amazon, you go to Amazon, put everything in your cart, go to Bitrefill, buy an Amazon gift card instantly. It gets instantly delivered for the exact amount you want. Put it in, and you're good. And just Spritz Finance in the U.S. lets you pay all your utility bills, your mortgage, your taxes, everything with Dash. And Swap It in Europe does that too. And we're partnering with some other things. Tons of really cool stuff you could do to just live all. Like I've been using Dash as my daily money since probably around the beginning of 2017. And it's only gotten easier over the years, even though like the market cap ranking and all that other hype and stuff has kind of gone the opposite direction. The utility has gone in the proper direction. So I can't say enough good things about Dash's money in a practical sense. On the other hand, one thing that people have struggled with who aren't like me, who just like are hardcores, is how do you, the reasoning to get Dash to begin with. And a lot of people, if you believe in sovereignty, you'd be more than happy to just buy all the Dash you can and just use that as your money, or only accept payment in crypto and swap it if it's a different coin than Dash, or say, please pay me in Dash or whatever. But for the average person to try to say, hey, why don't you take like a 2% fee out of your paycheck to buy this volatile asset that then you're just going to not sell, but spend again. A lot of people will just be like, well, why don't I just take my fiat, pay all my bills with it because it's easy, and then just buy something like Dash with whatever's left. And then, oh, it's volatile. Oh, but Bitcoin's been doing better these days. I'll just buy Bitcoin instead. And so the Ryan Gull, who's been in the Dash community a very long time, he runs the Dash incubator. He is especially vigorous in beating the drum of you need to earn it. People are not going to use crypto's money until they earn it first. And so then we get to the Hive side of the equation. Hive is built, as I mentioned, a built-in earning potential, and almost all the apps and services around Hive, I would say all of them, because there are some things like V for V and all the other things like that help you spend it. But for the most part, it's extremely heavy in the users using and acquiring the token, the earning part. And as far as it's also very easy and streamlined to publish things to the blockchain and interact and vote and distribute rewards and all that kind of stuff. On the other hand, like if you look up in a block explorer or whatever, everything on the Hive blockchain is extremely public. Some people, I don't know how many people actually object to that for the spending purposes, but some people don't like to have their entire financial history online, period. They like some sort of privacy. And also the opportunities to spend Hive, where there are some integrations, some major integrations here and there. I have to actually do a deeper dive into all that. But then there's plenty of smaller businesses, thanks to Distriator in certain parts of the world and stuff. Largely, most people can't just be like, I'm just going to only have Hive or Hive dollars and just spend that as my money. Nowhere near the same as Dash. So from my perspective, with the two communities, you have some overlaps in goals and abilities, but it's also a lot of like two communities building in completely opposite directions that are very complementary. Where if Hive has, in my opinion, a lot of the things that Dash should have, that if Dash wanted to have, would take so much time and money to just build out and be so behind. And then on the other side, for Hive to build out better privacy tech and spending and things like that, and then all the integrations and stuff to live off of it and stuff, would also be just a monumental task. And so my thinking is there's some great opportunities for synergy where you use both together. And when you use both together, you just complete the entire living on crypto, earning it, using it socially, etc., and then just living off of it. You kind of complete the whole picture by just deciding to use two chains instead of one. That's just kind of where my head's at in this. I don't know what you have to say about that.
Yeah, after we talked at Hive Fest about some of this stuff, I kind of went to the drawing board to think about how we could make it, work in a very synergistic but also user friendly way. So, I kind of came up with like 3 core tenets of what I think are needed um, to make this possible. And you kind of tacked a 4th one on there, which I agree with. And that would be, you need a easy way for Dash people to sign up to the platform and log in. And you mentioned before that, you can sign up and log into InLeo using X or Google. That's actually a light account protocol that we built, from the ground up, that allows people to do that. And it's kind of a custodial key solution. So it allows people to just sign up and use it without having to download their keys. The second piece is you need the ability to cash out. And that one's going to be a little controversial because some people think you need to build, kind of a siloed ecosystem, and you don't want people to cash out because that means that they're selling. I actually disagree with that. I think it was PayPal in the early days had a very similar idea, which is, make it very easy for people to go both in and out of the ecosystem. Depositing money should be very easy, and withdrawing money should also be very easy. And if both are easy, then people will be comfortable, spending money and using those rails.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer. What's that?
Yeah, what a radical concept that you should make it easy for people to do what they want to do, and that there's value.
Yeah.
In that. Whoa. Wow, radical talk here.
Yeah, I know, right? But then you see all these subscription platforms where they make it like a pain in the ass to be able to just cancel it. And ultimately that hurts their ability to get subscribers in the future, because you remember how annoying or stupid it was to have to, call them to disable the subscription. So I'm a firm believer in make it very easy to go in, make it very easy to go out. So I think that there should be an automatic, kind of cash out, cash in option, whether you want to cash out the rewards or restake rewards and get more. So that's the second piece. Third piece would be, being able to pay for things with Dash. So, InLeo has premium and creator subscriptions. I don't think any other Hive platforms actually have any products that you can buy. Pretty sure it's just InLeo at this point, where you can actually purchase something on the website. So, integrating Dash so that you can buy those 2 things, or, subscribe to other users, etc. And then you mentioned tipping, which I also think would be a pretty cool feature to add, so that people could do like dash to dash tips, or HBD to HBD tips. So, adding those 4 kind of critical pillars, I don't think is a very large technical burden. I think it's something that the InLeo team can do with relative ease. And I think, being uniquely positioned with LeoDEX, and I was kind of getting into that a little bit earlier, a big reason and motivator for me building LeoDEX was not because I thought we would suddenly go out and have, $100 million in volume every month. A big motivator was that I saw it as kind of a way to get our foot in the door with other ecosystems. So, ecosystems like Dash, where, you guys are integrated on Maya, and now, now we have a rail that connects us directly to Maya from a financial sense. So, what I mentioned with, cashing out rewards as the second piece, and the third piece being, being able to buy premium or creator subs, that can be handled with Dash using LeoDEX as the back end. So from the front end, what I've kind of designed with my team already, after we chatted, was, a one-click solution and even an automated solution where people can essentially go to and from Dash on InLeo instantaneously without any hassle or hurdle. And that uses LeoDEX on the back end, but then on the front end, they're just using InLeo and they're just using their Dash wallet. So I want to make it so that they can log in with their Dash wallet, earn crypto, and if they choose to decide that the crypto they want to earn is Dash, then they just check a box, and every week or every month, or most likely when a threshold is hit, say $5 or $10, it auto converts all their rewards into liquid Dash and just sends it to their Dash wallet. So you can kind of imagine that, like, every month you're just kind of like using your Dash wallet, and suddenly you see deposits from Leo, and those deposits are just Dash that's in your wallet. And then Dash has the other piece of that, which again you were mentioning is very synergistic, which is you can then go out and spend that Dash very easily. So like Leo, for example, is not something you can easily spend It's basically an asset on the platform that represents, as you engage and use the platform, you have ownership in the platform and the future success of it, and everything you've contributed. It's not really, Leo is not really meant to be spent in a certain sense. So I would love to see a synergistic relationship where, Leo might not be something that you want to spend, and something that I want to go spend a bunch of time, figuring out integrations and payments. And I know you've probably spent a ton of time on this and know how hard it is. It's a lot of work to go out and do the payment side of things. So I would much rather build the rails that make it very easy to go to and from Leo and Dash, and then you can go out and spend the Dash in the real world, but you earn Leo on the platform, and then whether you choose to hold that or auto convert it into Dash, I think is just the user's choice at the end of the day. And again, just make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, and I think that obviously there will be Dash users that just like, you know what, I'm going to just stick to X and other platforms like that. Just, maybe I'll monetize that. Maybe I'll get some auto payouts or what, they don't want to deal with that at all. And then there's going to be plenty of InLeo users who are just, I'm going to keep my stuff in HBD and Hive, and I'm going to just see where I could do. And I'm not really interested in Dash. There'll be plenty of both of those. But I think that there's a lot of people who are neither of those who will be InLeo plus Dash users, or, more broadly Hive. But there's other conversation to be had about other Hive projects that I'm sure we'll have in the future. But like for that, I think there's a lot of people that will be like, oh, cool. I know both projects. I want to use this. I want to earn, and then I want to spend in the ways that are most comfortable and help out. And something that, obviously, when I was chatting with you and I was chatting with Starkers and some other people, all that like, oh yeah, we get to, we'll help with Dash with this and that. Obviously, that sounds great to me from day one, right? Like, of course it sounds great. You're offering me more stuff than I had. But at the end of the day, I also was interested in finding out, how does it like work in a sustainable way? And the way we were talking about like business stuff, like it's easy to have a nonprofit or something that runs on goodwill. But at some point, you still might run out of goodwill. And I like things running sustainably. And sustainably is people are happy to continue to do a better and better job because they get paid. And so how does this benefit people? So from my understanding, first of all, the bigger this would grow the InLeo platform and get a lot of more users and usage. And the more users and usage, as you mentioned, means you buy more Hive to power all the users and all the usage. So if like you have like 100x users tomorrow, you got to go and start buying a lot of Hive to power all that usage. And that, of course, pushes up the price of Hive. So that's how it benefits. That's how the Dash community jumping on and putting a lot of legwork into promoting the usage of InLeo benefits Hive and Hive holders, even who aren't InLeo users, who are like PeakD or Hive Blog or 3Speak or whatever else. So their Hive becomes more valuable as a result. It goes up. And then obviously for InLeo, you get more users. Every way that users benefit you. In particular, the addition of whenever you go back and forth from Dash to Hive or whatever, there's some revenue to be made for LeoDEX on there. And so from the Dash perspective, it helps a lot because, first of all, you get a lot of people earning crypto who wouldn't otherwise have crypto or who would otherwise have to buy it with a bank account or whatever. And then you have a lot of people moving their Hive rewards into Dash, which then has good price action on Dash. So you have like the good price action on Hive and the good price action on Dash, and people who provide liquidity in the Maya protocol Dash pool then get a piece of that too. So you can earn with your Dash on that. And just, it seems like every little piece of this machine benefits everyone involved. At least that seems to be my perspective.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think from the Dash perspective, you guys are getting a use case, obviously all the social features. And then, like you said, I think one of the biggest pieces is being able to earn. when you think about like why do people have dollars or use dollars, it's because they earn dollars, right? Like they go to work, they get a paycheck, they earn dollars, and then they go out and spend those, and that's what ultimately makes the GDP and the economy turn. So I think that that's a huge win for Dash. I think the win for InLeo is quite obvious that if thousands or hundreds of thousands of Dash wallet holders and address holders start to use InLeo, we get those monthly active users. And like I said, having a more business mindset to things means that we're not running a charity. We're not building InLeo so that, just for the good of the world. Like there is an actual business model behind this where each user actually has some monetizable value between ad revenue, premium, creator subs, and other forms of revenue in the future. So, InLeo has that aspect of getting more users and monetizing those users, which ultimately drives usage of the Leo token. You also mentioned LeoDEX and the bridging rails where we collect fees, and then that obviously buys back Leo as well. And then Hive, like you mentioned, I think Hive has a lot more trickle down benefits than people realize, being that it's the platform where all the data is actually stored, whether it's a thread you create. So if a Dash person comes in and makes a thread, that is data getting stored on the Hive blockchain. And that actually has a cost to InLeo. So for us to get that data stored on chain actually costs us something, but it's in the form of what I described earlier, which is those rechargeable gas tokens, aka resource credits. So there is a cost associated to it. So like you said, if our user base 100x's, we already hold a few million Hive power. There's a very real scenario where we might need to hold 20 million, 30 million plus Hive power, by having that many users. So that by proxy, increases the value of Hive, and just via network effects. I mean, the scale that could be needed in terms of Hive resource credits and how we store data, that scales very quickly, and I don't think people realize that. I've gotten to know it pretty intricately, as I've had to scale from 100,000 Hive power to 3 million plus, and doing so with not even that many users. So it's a scenario that I would love to see, which is that Dash gets this whole ecosystem of the ability to earn Dash and then spend Dash, which is what you guys do. And then Leo gets all these users and all the monetizable aspects, and then Hive gets all the trickle down benefits of InLeo needing to scale, which ultimately benefits the Hive asset.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of interesting because of the way this thing works. This is all stuff that's doable today without any kind of partnership type thing, where any Dash user can just decide to sign up to InLeo right now and start earning, and then they can just use LeoDEX to then swap to Dash, and just it's already doable. It's just that it would be a lot smoother if we do some things like, for example, technical integrations on the InLeo side that allows, you mentioned the auto convert kind of sell, the ability to use Dash to buy creator subscriptions as opposed to like manually converting some over to HBD or whatever to buy them, and things like that. And then also kind of like the communities talking about each other, having like guides of how to do things in videos and resources, and doing ad campaigns and other things like that to kind of grow mutually, I think could be a big thing. And it just like being able to there's a certain thing with money and network effects. Like social platforms and money platforms are very similar in the way that if you have a few happy customers, that doesn't work out super well. You need more and more and more happy customers for the aggregate happiness to go up. Like if I go to a dentist and he's really good, if he has tons of customers, I don't get better dental work. It doesn't work. But if you're on a social platform and it's kind of a ghost town, there's like no value. If you have like a money that you could just kind of use a couple places, there's very little value. And there's a certain tipping point where the aggregate value of this ecosystem all of a sudden becomes like real. And so I think that if we're already at the point where a lot of people could live entirely off of Dash and other cryptos, but Dash is still probably the top of the heap as far as like smoothness and easiness to use everywhere. And depending on the other details like which country and things like that, but it's still very close to the top of the heap of like the best money to live on today. And then if you combine that with the ability to actually earn it, where you don't have to go through these clunky things to acquire it, that might be from where people like, they don't really, they think InLeo is kind of cool, but at the end of the day, they have these tokens that they can't do a whole lot with other than internally. I mean, they kind of figure some things out, or where it's like, yeah, I would love to live on crypto, but like it's a hassle to just buy it. And at some point, the entire ecosystem comes together to where the binary yes to no of like any entrepreneur has so many things that they have to adjust for, but ultimately their customers are binary. They're either their customers or they're not. They will buy your stuff or they won't. And sometimes as little adjustments, you crank up more and more value until finally the customer goes from giving you no money to giving you money. And that's kind of like where you get people who will not use really InLeo or Dash to where now all of a sudden they will use both. And I think that combining the two is kind of a way to get there.
Yeah, I agree. Network effects are very, it's multiplication based. It's not addition. So I think that a lot of people tend to forget that, which is that, connecting to different ecosystems and bringing them together is actually just a much more beneficial approach than building in a silo. As you mentioned, it's whether it's social or money based, it's a very similar aspect. So I think that the synergies between what Dash needs to succeed and what Leo and Hive need to succeed is very closely linked.
Yeah, for sure. And I have to say, as sort of like a concluding thought on that whole thing, I remember, what year did you get into crypto broadly, by the way?
Ooh, I think it was 9, maybe 10 years. I think it was 9 years ago. So where does that put us?
2015.
2014, I think, is when I actually got in. So 10 years now.
Damn.
Yeah, I got in right as Ethereum was just kind of getting out there. I remember like one of my first trades being Ethereum at $17. So yeah, it was, I got in before things got too crazy. And also when there was no use case in the industry. So it's definitely fun to think about how, for the first few years I was in crypto, basically all I did was buy crypto and tell everybody that I knew that they should buy crypto too. But there was nothing to actually show them in terms of using it. And then I think Steam it launched in 2016 or thereabouts. And that's when I kind of got into more blogging and talking to people about how they could not just buy crypto and sit on it because it was going to be the future. But it was also, there were actual use cases where you could do things with it.
Yeah. So I'm pretty similar. I have some posts and things talking about Bitcoin in 2012. I acquired my first I was actually traveling through, I moved from Phoenix, Arizona to Manchester, New Hampshire, and I drove the way in about September of 2013. And one of my pit stops was in Chicago, and a friend of mine, we split a pizza, and he paid me back for his part in Bitcoin. That's how I got my first Bitcoin. So it's sort of like a pizza day story a little bit. But so that was September of 2013, and then I've just, it's like the rabbit hole right there, and it wasn't until the end of 2015 that I stopped being paid in fiat entirely. But I guess we have like similar origin times, and I'm sure you remember that there was always alts around. There was always like, oh, we got a Litecoin here, we got a this and that. There was always things going on, but Bitcoin was crypto, basically. The entire movement was united around Bitcoin's the money that's going to take us to the future. And somewhere after the block size war, that kind of like fragmented. And every time I go around, I run into all these OG projects, whether it's Dash, whether it's Monero, whether it's Zcash, whether it's obviously Hive, Bitcoin Cash. You even have like Decred, and then there's a bunch of these like projects that are doing really good things and have a lot of those OG people who cared about freedom and cared about all this, all the value principles that I think Bitcoin has lost now. But they're all like in their own little like, it's almost like after a zombie apocalypse and like the world is depopulated, you just randomly run into refugee camps of like survivors. It's kind of like got that same vibe, and I don't think we're gonna make it. Not like this. I think we need to like round everyone together and get everyone working together again. And I know that like the Bitcoin Cash community's got a little maximalist these days, and the Monero community is always a little like that. So I'd be happy to have them participating in things, but I'm being realistic. But everyone else needs to work together. And I've been beating this like anti-maxi drum for a very long time. And it is kind of cool to see that, you know, obviously starting with Starkers, but also the rest of the Hive community. I'm sure there's some holdouts that are just kind of like Hive only sort of and don't like all this kind of stuff. But for the most part, the community seems very open to this anti-maximalist sort of like we need to all work together to survive attitude. And so like I don't think that Hive and Dash are going to survive in a vacuum. And a big thing that we did was like the big first part is partnering with Maya, getting really close with Maya, because that just kind of like the rest just sort of happens as far as like so many doors have been opened up by working with another blockchain, Maya protocol. And so I think that Hive working with, and I have a call with the VSC folks next week, and I want to just talk about, you know, I'm a little fuzzier on what all that kind of stuff's about, but you know, we'll figure it out and see what makes sense. But like, I think that Hive plugging into other blockchain projects helps a whole lot too. And you know, Dash could be the first big one to do like a big partnership. I mean, maybe in the future when Zcash gets added to Maya, maybe the Zcash community wants to do a big push on this kind of thing to be like the next Dash style coin with like the auto cash out and other things and to do co-promotion and stuff. But maybe they don't. But I think it would be cool if they did. And so, yeah, should be the start of, you know, kind of what's required to make, you know, freedom money and decentralization win.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think and again, why I got into the Thorchain and Maya ecosystems as well is they have a very, you know, like you said, the crypto industry has really taken a much different shape than I expected it to. And the reason why I got into this space was because I, you know, obviously agreed with the ideals of getting away from, you know, fiat and, you know, the reliance on banks. And, you know, you have events like 2008 and then, you know, the COVID crisis being completely mishandled. And, you know, that's a big reason I got into this space. So, you know, when things started to silo and become very tribalistic, it you know, kind of got under my skin a little bit because, you know, that's very anti, you know, Satoshi's vision, you know, the origins of this entire industry. So, you know, finding projects like, you know, Maya, Thorchain, you know, Dash, you know, I kind of knew immediately after talking to you that you guys are very open to working with other projects and you just want to see the ecosystems evolve and grow. You know, those are the horses that I want to bet on. You know, people that believe in the cross-chain future and who are chain agnostic in many ways and just care about seeing this technology actually utilized. You know, I when you came back onto Hive, you know, through InLeo and reposted that clip, you know, that news clip of you talking about how you went full-time crypto and debanked yourself, I think was a very clear picture of who you are and your ideals, and that you believe that this ecosystem should be used heavily.
A clear yet bloated picture because I was 30 pounds heavier in the CNN interview thing. So, yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, but yeah. Well, and then you said recently had a dip because of possibly a Hive Fest COVID outbreak. We don't know.
Yeah,
But I was also sick for a while.
a lot of people got sick from something else. Yeah, it's good that's all over.
Yeah.
So, let's kind of wrap this thing up. What now that we've kind of introed everyone to everything and given some grand visions, what are kind of some next things that people can look forward to? What does the near-ish future look like?
Yeah, I would. So creator subscriptions was a huge piece of the puzzle for me. Um, the whole mission of InLeo is to really empower the small to mid-sized creator. Like I said, most of the value has flown to the top 1% when it comes to Web 2. So the top creators, the Mr. Beasts of the world, and then also the obviously the owners of those platforms, which is Meta Corporation and X Corporation and these other Web 2 centralized corporations are the ones who absorbed all that value. So my idea is, build, take the best of what they built, rebuild it, but do it with a blockchain, and then redistribute all that value to the people who ultimately build the platform by adding data and UGC to it. And creator subscriptions were a huge piece of that because it really allows creators to come in and earn crypto. And I know you being someone who's unbanked and you've described other people who are similar, want to be able to do things like Substack, but obviously don't want to or can't, in certain parts of the world, KYC in order to earn money from those platforms. So building the subscription service was a big thing for me. So that was a huge focus. So we're going to be refining that over the next few weeks. And I think, now that that's kind of cleared off of my plate, I think the Dash integrations are going to be kind of the number one focus throughout the rest of October. I'd love to get these things into labs, and it'll probably take us under a week to get them from a technical perspective into labs, and then just test them, make sure they're bulletproof, and then obviously talk to you about what we can do, together. And then throughout the rest of this year, just really press on that, go for more users. Leo AI is something that you might have seen a few people mention in the Threadcast. Mm-hmm. I've been building our own AI model, and it's been trained on all the data on the Hive blockchain. So any data that's publicly accessible on Hive is what it's trained on, as well as generalized training, because it's actually a fork of Llama. So ironically created by Meta, open source, but that's going to be one of the biggest things that we release this year, is going to be a ChatGPT like interface, and then also Copilot features. So I would say outside of the Dash integration and really just focusing with you guys and trying to grow both of our ecosystems, it's going to be very AI heavy going into the end of this year.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool stuff. Well, if anyone, I'm going to drop it in the chat and stuff, but if anyone is not on InLeo right now, I drop in the Dash referral link so that people can jump in accounts to that. It looks like we have 2 referrals so far. And I'll kind of like do this in the, like, just a little quiet for now, but once the actual like more explicit integrations start to be rolled out, then we'll do like a big community-wide push, and we'll do some like X spaces with the Dash accounts, a bunch of other things like that, and just like kind of like, because like right now, if you get a bunch of Dash users and they're like, okay, how do I use Keychain? And then they're using Keychain, and then they're like, all right, so then I have to connect with LeoDEX and press a few buttons, and some of them might just be like, yeah, I'm doing other things with my life. But if we snag them all right when it's smooth, I think we could do some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to make it so that it's, log in with your Dash wallet, and it's, it's as easy as using anything else. And you click a button, you check a box, and you say, I want to receive my payouts as Dash. And that's really it. Then you just use the platform as if you're using X, or any other platform. And then your payouts just show up in your Dash wallet. Mm-hmm. So that's my end goal. And I believe that if I shift our sales a little bit, we can get there by the end of October in production. So nice. I think that would be it'd be an awesome thing to pounce on before the end of this year.
Yeah, there's obviously that'd be very nice and very optimistic. I like optimism, and I like if it turns out that way. There was a fellow, a good friend who who created a Dash payment app that really was really very useful in facilitating people spending Dash, Marshall. And he kept up. He was a very like fast builder and an innovator, got things moving really fast, but was also a little ahead. So he'd be like, oh yeah, in March we're gonna have this thing, and it just like later on in April we're like, oh, we're testing the first version. So I used to joke with him about Marshall Standard Time, about it's like a time conversion. It's like not as fast, but like, yeah, we'll see what the I had planned for like late September to have some ad campaigns ready the next week, because the Dash username wallet would be out, and it's final stages on testnet right now. So probably next week. So it's like, again, a few weeks, and nothing is on time, right? Everything takes longer, especially when you're going fast. So I'm expecting everything to be live right before Thanksgiving. Doesn't give you a longer rope. Still do it this month, please. But like, let's just say that, right?
Yeah, you always have to be optimistic, and the community, the Leo community, has dubbed it Sooniverse Standard Time, because I always say everything is soon or very soon.
SST. And I like that. I'm going to steal that.
Yep. You're be my guest.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're going to aim to have it by the end of October, but as you said, everything takes longer than you think. But yeah, Godfish said they also call it the calendar, KHAL calendar. So yeah, so I can be optimistic at times with timelines, but in the end, I think we get where we want to go, and that's what truly matters.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I've been using InLeo for like 3 weeks or so. Like, well, actually, I started using it while at Hive Fest a little bit. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I started posting on hive.blog there. I don't remember the exact first time, but it was like at Hive Fest or on the way back in the plane, or like as soon as I got back. So it's been like 3-4 weeks. And I've noticed a bunch of bugs go away. And I've noticed, obviously, creator subscriptions came out. So like I've seen stuff happen in my real time. So at least you get something done. I don't know the timelines yet, but at least it does happen. So where can everyone follow you and follow InLeo and the other stuff other than joining InLeo? Which, of course, I put the links in all the comment sections, the referral link to sign up if you want to use it. What about you personally?
Cool. Yeah, I spend probably 90% of my social media time on InLeo, and then the other 10% would be on X. So the irony of building your own social media platform is that you also have to be on other Web 2 platforms in order to grow it. So I am pretty active on X. My username is Khal Kaz, so KHAL KAZ. So you'll see me posting there occasionally, but not nearly as actively as on InLeo.
Yeah, so on InLeo, it's Khalil Kazi, which is also all of Hive. So if you want to shit post on Hive blog for whatever reason, then you do there. And and then Calcaz on X. It is kind of interesting that even though it's like an alt social platform, like it's not a mainstream one, you still got like 3 times the number of followers on InLeo that you do on X, which is kind of cool. I have like, I don't know how, I have like 20 or 40 or something on InLeo. And then I have like 14,000 on X. So much more X heavy. I've also been on X 12 years, so that's a different thing.
Right.
But yeah,
I think it definitely goes to show where you spend the majority of your time.
Yeah.
And where I spend mine.
I would say like 50% of my time on social networks these last few weeks has been on X, and then like 30% or 25-30% on InLeo, and then the rest is just the rest. I just don't get the same engagement, and also coincidentally, those are the 2 that actually pay me. I do get paid from X, and I do get paid from InLeo, so like makes sense. And like I guess I get paid from YouTube as well, but that's not like shit posting on YouTube is not going to get me paid. It's just when I put out videos. So there you go. That makes sense. Well, yeah, thanks very much for being on. I know it's almost 2 hours so far, and yeah, it's been a great chat. It was good hanging out with you. Feel free to come up to the Free State of New Hampshire sometime and just have a look around, and it's good. It's nice this time of year, And if I'm ever in your neck of the woods, I'll also hit you up. And everyone, thanks for watching everything. This has been great. And try out InLeo. And if you're a Hive person looking at this stuff, go to the App Store, Apple App Store, the Android Play Store. Hopefully you're an Android person. And just download the Dash wallet and await further instructions, because probably next week, at least for Android users, you'll be able to get a Dash username registered. And then, yeah, just anywhere you can find me. I'm the Desert Links everywhere except Hive, where I'm the Desert Linux. Yeah, whatever. Just hit me up with any Dash related question any time of day, anywhere, and I will find some time to respond. And yeah, let's make crypto freedom and decentralization great again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Cool. Thanks for watching, everyone. Enjoy your Friday and weekend, etc. And I'll see you guys around. Bye-bye.